She's blackout drunk with Friday night still caught in the cobwebs of her hair and nail polish so chipped it makes the escape from Shawshank look as easy as checking out of a hotel. And she snores like the death of a Ford truck, so loud it actually wakes her up on every other. Whatever lucid dream going on in her head at the moment pulls her eyelids back down like garage doors crashing shut against the ground. I just sit here and look after her, make sure she doesn't do anything stupid. Because it's Saturday morning, less than half the weekend, and anybody can take a wild guess the rest isn't peaches. They don't sell liquor around here on Sundays, but it more than likely won't stop the drinking. Because it's only been a few days since her best friend was stabbed in the neck and left in the street bleeding to die. Unexpected death is unbelievable. It's like the moment you realize somebody stole your bike. You know that split second where you look outside where you locked it and you think to yourself, shit. It's just one of those things, a decade and a half of school, 20 some odd years on earth, parents or teachers can't prepare you for or teach. It's just one of those things you deal with. Like time, traffic, weather. Her and I have grown up together long enough to understand that giving 2 cents doesn't always make up the difference. And defining what it is and what it isn't as defining as what you give it. As children, we learn to never trust never. In high school, we found that no God or Savior can measure out forever or reassure an empty feeling or broken heart will feel better. And in the last few days, we learned that this city doesn't have a halo, it has a cloud, and you never truly have tomorrow. All you got is right now. So for the time being, she can drink and cry as much as she wants, curse the world to ash and dust, grab the ground by the collar and smash it back to mud, draw an imaginary line between sad and drunk, and right now that's not asking much. Standing stuck, smiling through tears and sporadically laughing because it's only been a few days since her best friend passed away. And it comes down to the direction we walk after we crash in flames, what we do when there's nothing left to say, what we pursue when there's nothing left to drink. Her and I don't accept death the same, so she gets trashed to a fashionable disaster, and I just sit here and look after her, knowing fully well I don't have to stay. But I stick around because Minneapolis is her name. She showed me death is just one of those things that happens, like time, traffic, weather. I want to tell her it's just like when somebody steals your bike, right? But people aren't bikes. Although when they're stolen from us, we wander the city as if we'll find them again. Escaping Nina's coffee shop for a brief writer's break to eat for the first time in the day, on my way to my car, I turned the corner to a scenario that's already occurred twice this week. So now, for the third time in the lapse of 7 days, I've walked this same street to run into nobody other than Garrison Keeler, which makes it now the third time I've watched him step out of his shitty, dilapidated, doo-doo colored Volvo, muster an arthritic geriatric strut to the sidewalk like the pimp of St. Paul, step onto the curb like a podium to an Olympic gold medal, and as we cross paths, he gives a split-second's glance, peering over his skyscraping, jagged shoulder, a fleeting look of disapproval, bestowing a sliver of his immaculately important attention as if to say, Young writer, please. I've slow dance syndications, written multi-syllabic rhythms, hell, I've mistakenly coughed poetry finer than your most well-thought-out configuration of creative literature. My right brain is larger than that of your alma mater's English department, whilst my left would snap the psyche of a small school of business. And go take that alley next time you see me on these streets, young writer. The sidewalk belongs to me, motherfucker. And in that same exact moment, I deliver a similar glare, one of deep repressed emotion, curving a question mark, feigning great and furious anger. I give him a look that says, "It is I, Toussaint Morrison." I don't know why it's in an English accent, it just sounds more authoritative that way. "And I will not take any alley upon arrival of you, your shite-colored car, or your shabby royalty. I am known to far less than your name entertains, but I am not entertained. I give approximately -39 fucks for the likes of you, and although you do not know who I am, you soon will. I am the undocumented offspring of Charles Bukowski, the seed from the loins of Malcolm X, the illegitimate adopted son from the brief gay marriage of Balfi and Shane Hawley, a child of chaos, mistress of militants, close kin to confrontation, student from the school of Dr. Strange, nephew to the pending race riot, and defiler of passive aggression. I am a lesser known force, but a force nonetheless. I, too, swing the pen, old white man. And I will walk any street I see fit for walking, despite your glare, like a cop, condescending and entitled, despite you move like gentrification, slow and evil. And just like that, our trance breaks, paths cross, and continue into our day. He continues into a city that will embrace his every word. And I continue to my equally shitty and dilapidated Honda Civic to grab a sandwich from the glove compartment, to eat, to fuel myself, to write, and embrace the city with my every word. They pay me money to work with children in a classroom. And I'm trying to remember that as hard as possible while a 4-year-old named Sid stands on top of a table, brandishing a pair of scissors like a shiv and threatening to cut me or Miss Jessica, the teacher, if we come any closer. Surely this can't be for notoriety. Class is already leaving for lunch. So I safely assume it's because he actually is notorious, just like the papers that came with him said. Sid Fleischman, 4 years old, pre-K, his parents are freshly divorced, he's already been kicked out of 2 schools, shows signs and symptoms of bipolar and oppositional disorder, he's not on the spectrum for autism, has been diagnosed with emotional behavior disorder, and he has a history of violence in the classroom. So somebody, in the name of Bob Lane Saget, who the hell left the adult-sized pair of shears out on the table after arts and crafts next to the one kid that clearly has no qualms brandishing them like Frodo's elven-made sword? And that must be why they called me. To pay me money to work with children in a classroom, as a paraprofessional, the kid whisperer, the last resort to a failed connection between student and teacher before said student gets punted down the line to some no-nonsense Judge Judy policed citadel for pre-K. Pre-K. When I was 4 years old, I barely understood the mechanics of how to throw a punch, let alone operate an adult pair of scissors correctly. Yet, here we are, staring into the eye of the liger. And if Miss Jessica or I makes one wrong move, somebody's gonna get cut real deep. And I know he'll do it. I've known Sid before I was assigned to him, before we took our first time out, walked down the hallway and back, before I even met him. When somebody truly doesn't give a fuck, they don't have to say it. They tell you with their eyes. They wear the reckless abandon in their joints. The you have no clue where I'm from and stagnant eyebrows, the motherfucker please in the lower half of their face, and the keep talking because I wish you would, in their silence. The domestic high decibel discussions taught you the art of interruption when somebody isn't listening, and the sharp shift in tone gave you a new bullet in balancing non-negotiables. Sid, watching grown adults grow verbose over a dinner table while your brain is still developing will teach you certain things too early. Surely observing can't be the right word for it because observers can walk away as far as it takes to dissociate. They weren't locked into a high chair, forced to watch their makers separate. We didn't watch the house burn. We caught fire along with it. And trust me, Sid, there is nothing in that pair of scissors that can put your parents back together. I know because I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. Laughing in the mouth of detention, to taking makeshift vacations during suspension, to setting fires just to see if the flames could climb high enough to burn the heavens. How cliche is that for me to say, you remind me of me? But then again, you're 4 years old. Nothing's been around long enough to be cliche, right? Okay, look. If you're willing to give up over half of your wardrobe to a local Goodwill, I can get down with that. All right? If you have organ donor laser printed onto your state ID, I'd make out with you. But if you're willing to give up one of your living kidneys for somebody else's cause, yeah, I go out with you. Okay, because there are less than more people that understand that at the end of the day, we're just borrowing time in a body until we have to give them back, right? And when the zombie apocalypse strikes, the only people you can trust are the ones who can separate emotion from flesh, right? Trust me, there's like nothing awesome about mourning over the dead body of a loved one while they slowly turn to zombie and then bite you during your moment of emphatic mourning, which would then turn you into a zombie. That's a total deal breaker. What kind of shit is that? Oh, excuse us. Bye. That's the exact type of behavior that's gonna get us all killed in a post-apocalyptic circumstance. I mean, how do you think these things end up the way they do? It's like a casino and the chips are human bodies and the leader, Donnie, he wants to go all in and then we're screwed. Okay, the second last thing anybody wants. The second to last thing anyone wants is for somebody to be using up all the ammunition during a zombie raid. But now hear me out. The last thing anybody wants is to be dating the person that's using up all the ammunition during the zombie raid. You feel me? Taking senseless scatter shots into a horde of the undead, screaming, game over, man, game over. Trust me, this relationship is not worth it if it can't cope with the end of the world. And trust me, nothing puts things into perspective. Trust me, nothing puts things into perspective like the potential end of the world. In the final hours, you have to understand that this time isn't ours. And whether or not you subscribe to a higher power, there isn't a fiber of this that we get to take with. You know, a side effect of being born is an addiction to life, so much that we do just about anything to stick around the party a little longer, hooking ourselves and others up to machines by some jungle and amalgam of tubes, blood vessels, and veins to keep our hearts beating, to keep us breathing, to keep us believing that as long as our bodies are moving, we're still alive. Now, breathing with the pulse is overrated. Machines can do that for us while we're brain dead. I'll get impressed when they invent a device that can make us laugh or smile while in a coma. Hold on to me by the memory, by the words, by all the intangibles, because this, we're more than this. And if you can understand that, then you know that giving your living kidney for somebody else's cause, that's love. But love is also knowing where to point the barrel of the gun. Because if I get bit, the last thing I want to see, and the only thing I want to see before I go, are your eyes. Right before you pull the trigger, knowing that I loved you with more than this. I really gotta go pee. I'll be right back. Don't move, okay? Be right back. Jenny, look, the space between your father and I is a synagogue the size of the Superdome. Okay, that's not too much in common. And maybe being black and Jewish at the same time for him is unacceptable. Only unless you want it. The dream evades me like sleep on finals week and all the time that's been lost that I tried to keep. When you could cry until the sky spills or cast 7-mile stares into each other's eyes and not blink because our eyes are weak from looking each other in the iris, we don't. In a situation with too much pride to speak, too much history to forget, and maybe too much religion for us to fit in, we're settling for better off dead, waiting until the end, and holding each other's hands through the holes we've punched in the fence, and I'm not doing this. Look, I don't choreograph last dances because the music in my head doesn't take smoke breaks or classes on risk management. Your old man's hang-ups might be enough to break up this song's arrangements, but understand these types of things don't go out like a candle or a simple agreement with an awkward hug and thank you for the good game, good luck, good day, good night. For your own happenings to happen, you have to manage to blow fire back at the dragon. And from our grandparents' past, from places too dark to shine, you would have thought that we would have learned by now how to hold on even when our arms are tied. Look, understand this isn't a pack of wet matches. All right, we're going down like any helicopter in a Bruce Willis flick. Loud, badass, exploding in slow motion, and somehow alive after it's all said and done with. Similar to when we have sex. Loud, badass, exploding in slow motion, and somehow the argument we were having beforehand is all said and done with. I'm sorry, there's a horrible metaphor. I don't know where I was going with that. Jenny, you said you'd love me to be the type to not give up a good fight. I said I dig your pumas. We'd chat over coffee or a few beers and discuss how Harvey Milk's killer only got a few years. What's it cost to buy an alibi? And who taught missiles how to fly? You said the day you lose the fight is the day you compromise it. I said the day you lose the fight is the day you pick a side of it. You smile. You suggest we pay off our student loans by setting sail on the next Somali pirate ship. Jenny, I look anything and everything but Jewish, okay? And you just look white. I mean, really white, you know, like Guantanamo Bay, bathroom fluorescent, spotlighting white. What I'm saying is that sometimes it would give me the notion as to what our kids would look like. You know, whether they had the Star of David tattooed to their chest or not, I could care less than if they carried your brown eyes. Whether they shouted praise be to Allah or thank you Jesus when the Vikings scored a touchdown, it wouldn't matter to me. As long as they understood that sometimes it takes an act of God for the Vikings to score a touchdown. I mean, that's all that really matters, right? Look, I wouldn't mind if every person on earth carried your strength, because I don't believe that your faith can be summed up by one title or one name. We all have our fair share of misdirections and wrong turns, enough to understand that love is more than one word. And Jenny, I don't need religion to see the God in you. They call her a cold queen, who's murdered bold kings and said cold things, freezes hearts to death and goes and counts her gold rings. In a castle filled with ice, strife, and spotlights that doesn't melt a drop on hot nights, it can't be cracked, broken, chopped, or sliced. And then she cracks grins as she clutches her wand tight to cast spells upon herself that turn her heart into solid rock ice. On a college campus, eking out enough space for her to fall into 3 social categories: prude, slut, or bitch. She doesn't comply with this, so they call her a cold queen. Because she does her own thing and has the confidence and common sense to not put up with being treated like an object by the male populace, with the beauty as obvious as her mouth is honest to tell you you're on an ego trip and you need to get the hell off it. I mean, good goddess. She stands out like the oddest, with strength of the strongest. She gets more pissed than my mom gets. Refuses to be modest for the sake of being real. She's all up in my system like a bong hit. It's complete bullshit. I've never smoked anything in my life, but after I first met her and told all my friends how cool she was and how someday I was gonna write a really great slam poem about her, they could have swore I was high. My eyes soaked with courage pouring from her presence, saturated to this day, which is why I still address this message in honor of such a bold woman who can even defy the sun when it gets jealous and calls upon a tempest in efforts to wash away her bright, captivating, cloudless complexion. But it can't happen, because she has the muscle of Mount Everest. She can walk away unscathed, throwing on her black leather jacket over her broad shoulders that extend out like 2 cliffs, holding up her hair from swinging like her 2 fists whenever guys start grabbing her and making sexual comments. And they still call her a cold queen. Like my dad would call my mom lazy and criticize her body. He would forget to thank her a lot, but he always remembered to let her know that she isn't shit and that her job at the hospital as a nurse is worthless. For 10 years, my mother's mind battered with verbal abuse from him until one day she packed my sister and I in the car and left him. Now this gallant and benevolent single mother still puts up with long-distance phone calls from him, calling her a bad mother, like my friend Karina would put up with her boyfriend, calling her a smart mouth just before he would beat her to bruises, blemishes, and abrasions. I said, Karina, if he doesn't stop, I'm gonna make him. She was like, no, we're getting married. And my heart sank and then the tears came, because I knew she wasn't gonna leave him no matter how much blood he would take. It was too late. Like for a friend of mine who woke up one Sunday morning to find out she had been raped, so shocked she couldn't enunciate. Hate to say of late, I've been losing faith. I can't figure out if this poem is bullshit male guilt or me trying to tell this queen that I care and pray none of this shit she should ever have to face. But I'm trying real hard to understand. If I ever hear anybody call her a cold queen again, I'm gonna have to protest it, saying, watch your mouth, little boy. She's a bold queen. Well respected like a street empress. So you should show some respect, because even the street lights are bowing at her entrance. If you don't like her, it's because you don't know who you are. And she stands out because she knows who she is. Proving true when it was said, woman is the name of God on all lips. Dear Ashley, I understand your mother ain't enough, even though she's been clean for 2 years, kick the stuff. You're the smallest second grader in your class, but you got the 5th grade boys afraid you'll whoop their ass. And I'm afraid you'll do it too. The way you clench your toys, there's a thin line between your playtime pain and joy. The past is in your eyes, the fire's in your speech. 8-year-old girl that's seen more than the police. It's hard to take care of in this daycare. You deserve better, but it's not my place to say where. My paycheck isn't worth a 40-minute drive, but for you, Ashley, I'd put a stolen car into flight. Rush to your side to see to it that you're all right all your life. No rest, all fight. I don't know why my job title's teacher, because you're schooling me every single time I step in here. School buildings only stretch as far as the door. They don't make them strong as you are anymore. Young queen, brace yourself for what the world thinks you should be. I'm leaving and I'm proud to know you're gonna make it out there on your own. Haven't got your wings yet, little black duck, but they still step to you when you tell them back up. You say you haven't seen your father, just your brother and your mom. We're birds of a different feather, but we're from the same pond. Bound by the same bond of painkillers and tough lovers, raised in the house of the single mother. The other teachers want to send your anger to the office to resolve it, and it's not you, it's the office that's the problem. Silly adults, when we're in the wrong, we act infallible, and then we say that it's your fault. Screaming and weeping, Ashley, it pains me. Tell me, who says you don't have the right to be angry? Who sits you down when all you want to do is run, and who told you to keep quiet when it was just getting fun? Me. And I won't do this any longer. This program is trying to hold back the light you have to offer, Ashley. Love ain't enough. I know I told you when our words don't work, we finger paint our thoughts, but this time's a little different. I want you to run further than the county line and then some. Steal the moment back for once and lose yourself. Forget the things they wanted you to change but couldn't help. These people want me out. The music gigs don't conform with the schedule of a suburban daycare for profit. I'm gonna miss you. Write and read on, hold down your corner of the playground like a big boss. You'll pave your own way, you're stubborn as me. But never be afraid to have a plan B. Ask for directions, or take a deep breath. Don't let these party poopers rain on your recess. Ashley, you're worth every single wall we had to fight through, and I'll be lucky if I ever have a daughter like you. School buildings only stretch as far as the door. They don't make them strong as you are anymore. Young queen, brace yourself for what the world thinks you should be. I'm leaving and I'm proud to know you're gonna make it out there on your own. Yeah. Ooh. Cheers. Woo! Is that the cops? Oh, shit. Why are all the so-called Jews trying to compare 5 years of suffering with 500? Said a black poet. I couldn't believe he said that. I mean, those 5 years were really messed up. Said a white poet. Still searching for the common sense in these comments, walking down Franklin Avenue, I recalled my ex-girlfriend, Jenny. Whenever we would argue, she would say, look, I'm just seeing things for what they are. I'd leave our disagreements defeated, disbelieving. Her eyes were so all-seeing that the world was within her sight's reaches. Frustrated, I'd contemplate, if we live the only truths we know through the only eyes we have, then wouldn't we see things for what we are? Bursts of cars blurred in quick thickets of traffic. I snap back to my present status on Franklin Ave, a little impatient, waiting to get to my destination. It feels like one of those lights that never changes. Patience. I lean against the street sign to kill time and keep a still mind. Let my hands fall into my pockets on each side of my Levi's. Relax my face to a calm and collective complexion. Check my cell phone in case I missed a message. I gotta rub my eyes to make sure they're still there. Because on the surface, this isn't working. I'm trying to play it cooler than cold coffee. I let my lungs sigh to cover my heart's offbeat and the fact that I'm quietly crying like freedom in prison, convinced there isn't a shred of common sense in the content and conflict of your comments. I keep trying to get off it, but spotting somebody across the street who looks different than me has me jumping right back on it. Spilling in public on the dysfunction injunction, 5 years of suffering with 500, as if who's ever had it worse should get respectfully refunded and their social identity reconstructed. Look, I'm reluctant to jump in and start investing in my ancestry's death toll to cash in on the history of misery for sympathy. I don't want to support being black for social credibility over somebody else's experience. True, wrapped in black skin is demanding, and I wouldn't undermine the systematic injustice for a specific incident of injustice. But between slave ships and Auschwitz, I doubt the people died proud to be a comparable figure in an argument of hardships where you keep competing with the tragedies of your histories and all you've defeated is the purpose of peace. We debate over some trophy of the victimized, and we hyped it to such a bright shine, we blinded the victim's eyes to see the criminal. Now, we can sit here and be individuals about it and compare losses, or we can walk together and break down the institution that caused it. If we live the only truths we know, through the only eyes we have, then I've been sinking in my pumas with denial. Ignorance has gotten me nowhere, and I've been standing on this corner a long time. So I say fuck the light. I'll meet you in the middle of the street, and we can walk against traffic until they get the message.
Fuck the light.
Exactly.
I like it.
I'm sorry.
Ladies?
We'll keep it down.
You're next.
Woo! Come on, Deuce! Okay. I never told you the one when I woke up in a multi-million-dollar condo in Miami. A woman entered the room in the morning and handed me a cup of yogurt and said, "Breakfast is served. You earned it." And I never told you the one where I was held up at gunpoint by the police in Washington, D.C. because it turned out that I was parking too close to Dick Cheney's house. But I want to tell you the one about me, the man, and the rooftop. There I was, in the middle of the rooftop. And there he was standing on the ledge somewhere. There. Right, okay. Half of killing yourself is actually being able to accomplish it. I would assume the other half is the meaning behind it or the intent. Defiance, non-compliance, dislike and sobriety heightened by the dry taste of tragedy, and only suffice with self-inflicted violence. How I got to the rooftop, I'll tell you some other time. But I was there. There he stood, straight as the building beneath him, with the toes of his shoes hanging off the edge, kissing the wind, wisping wherever the weather would have it or want. Every 8 seconds or so, the wind would kick, twist, and redirect too quick for his reflexes not to submit in some flailing of limbs all over the place. And looked as if he were managing a goddamn imaginary hula hoop. Poor bastard. It was almost as if the wind were telling him to hurry up and get along with it. In a sad irony, it was the same wind that was drying the tears slipping away from his face, sniveling pittily betwixt grief and the planet's lack of sympathy. I shouted, "Hey, I'm not interested in the why or the what. I just came here for the who. I don't want to know your name. I want to know what's in it, or at least what's left of it. All the cracks, the crevices, the imperfections, everything you'd consider to be a mess of a mess that's evidence leading up to whatever this is, a detriment, or perhaps negatives impregnating the big picture. You don't need to say anything because from where you're standing, it already says enough. I'm not new here. I found friends filleting forearms or fornicating with an overfill of pills, or them finding themselves finding a firearm to fill an empty chamber with hopes to fulfill an empty feeling. But this, standing here for minutes on end with an audience, it's just a spectacle, don't you think? I will say, the only reason why you're feeling something right now is because it stings, like madness. And most likely for one of the following reasons. You never played to win. You played not to lose. You never stood in front of the dodgeball to catch it for fear that you would get out. So you sandbagged your way to the last man standing. You gave her your time, but you never gave her your heart. You risked nothing, and you liked it. You marveled at bodies of water, but you swam too close to the beach. You held your imagination by a leash for fear that you lose your footing. You dreamt as far as your cubicle let you. Mitigating danger only to be favored by a thin layer of green paper and brief sighs of relief. Putting off the real question for later. I'm not asking who's your savior. I'm asking you, where is your anger? Where's your rage? For every moment that you let go to waste, for every opportunity that you let fall to disclaimer, for every time you felt like you were standing at the same exact edge, but you didn't make a move, because you didn't want to get hurt. When you spend a lifetime of apathy feeling nothing, trust me, you will die just to feel something. And just before that sidewalk slams your solar plexus into your spine, I'm hoping at least one of these words hits you harder. My friend, welcome to the madness, where I've pitched my tent and stabbed my flag into the ground a long time ago. This is a habitat, not a place for jumping from. The rooftop is where we live, and the rationale is what we breathe. But you must find a way to exhale sense back into the world because it needs you to. It's not my place to judge the direction that you take your next step, so I will not. Hence, it is my place to tell you that there has never been a moment that you have existed that you haven't mattered. You always have, and you always will.
Nice.
Yeah, jeez. Whoa.
I guess I'm next. Let's go.
The National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota stands next to the river, from which across the river you can see a plethora of bald eagles perched or swooping like a gaggle of bats in a family reunion. As a younger man, I once saw a bald eagle beset in a stray current of wind. Its wings were stretching opposite directions, hugging the curve of our great planet. It was so monstrous in its size and moving so fast through the air. My younger mind mistook it for a pterodactyl or some mythological beast come to snatch us humans up and take us back to its nest to eat. The National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota showcases 5 eagles, all having incurred some life-altering injury, no longer permitting them to fly. Columbia fractured her right shoulder in a car accident, was also found to have lead poisoning. Harriet also fractured a wing and had to have it amputated. Donald. They found Donald the eagle as a fledgling in Florida in 2006. He was born with a tumor over his left eye. Surgically cutting the tumor from his face, it rendered Donald blind in his left eye. So naturally, they worry that his depth perception will surely be his demise. So if Donald were to use the wings he was born with and fly, he could die in a crash landing. The broken birds sit perched on foot-tall stands extending from the ground. Children press as close as they can to the rope barriers, watching the broken wing, ground-destitute eagles fish minnows out of buckets in front of them. There is no hunt for them anymore. Dinner is served. God bless the National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota. But Donald wants nothing of it. The bucket of minnows splashes in front of him while his back is turned to it and the children. He's watching. He's looking. His one eyeball is scanning and surveying the window between him and the river beneath the flight party of bald eagles, free to take off and land as they please. It is clear Donald would rather risk his life to do the one thing he was born to do, fly, than to sit in a well-furnished prison with a view. He knows that he is the only able-bodied organism in the building with functional wings that's still able to fly. He's still as a painting. Until he swivels his head towards the audience. And he's looking at me. His one eye is peering into my shallow and curious soul. Hey, he says. You looking at me, I said? Yeah. If they would just take this simple leather strap off my leg, I'd show them and their armchair environmentalist agenda I can do this. You look out that window and you see a river and trees on the other side of it. But tell me, have you seen the wind? Have you seen leaves flicker and flutter like the wings of a butterfly while still slave to their branch? Have you seen ancient families of towering trees sway and acquiesce for acres? Have you seen the dirt lift off the ground to dance, dash, and dance again? You humans are so funny. You guys are always going somewhere, always studying something, but you're never enjoying it. Did you know that every plant and every animal on this planet longs to be swept up in the glory of the wind? Every cell and every fiber longs to fly, longs to be free. Yet the best that your country's fiscal taxes can muster is a foot-tall pipe to perch upon with the view of what could be through a thick piece of glass. Toussaint, you gotta help me, man. You gotta get me out of here. Please. I take a moment because, shit, I didn't expect to be having this conversation here. So I look back at him, look him in his eye, and I tell him, Donald, I wish I could, but I can't. And I am so sorry about that. It is clear Donald is living evidence the greatest risk we take is by taking no action at all. It's clear that Donald takes a minutia of satisfaction in watching his brothers and sisters' freedom through a piece of glass. And it's clear I've been standing and staring at Donald for an obscene and perhaps perverse amount of time. A staff member accosted me and broke me out of my hypnosis with the bird. She leaned in and said, "You know, sometimes we take the birds outside on leashes. When the wind kicks up, Donald will spread his wings a little bit, maybe even fly a little." Fucking A right he would, I told her. I'm surprised he hasn't snapped this leash and bust through that window by now.